What if one specific experience could change your belief system forever? What if the horrific creatures we see in movies existed among us? What if the monster under our bed, the one our parents told us wasn't real, was actually there the whole time? What if? The open set of questions that all paranormal researchers have been trying to answer for centuries. Whether you believe in the unknown or not, the accounts of what we cannot fully grasp still seem threatening and scary, simply because there is something unsettling about the things we cannot see. As a child, I would always ask my mother to tell me about her experiences growing up in a house that was built over a burial ground and used to lay bodies out before funerals. She would tell me about the time she would hear her statue of Mary crash to the floor in her walk-in closet, and when she would hear footsteps throughout the house when no one was home. Of all the stories, however, none of them compared to the one that took place when she was 16.
One of the things that happened to my sister and I, we lived in this big house that my grandfather built. One of the worst experiences of my life was when my sister and I shared the same room. We had two double beds. The bedroom was that huge. And I shut the bedroom door, and when you turned the lights off, everything would get pitch black. So my sister, we crawled to bed, she shut off the light, and I just opened my eyes for a second, and there was two red glowing eyes coming at me, and I started screaming, "Bobby, turn on the light! Bobby, turn on the light!" And she didn't turn on the light, and by the time she did turn on the light, I was off the bed, pressed up against the window with these red glowing eyes coming at me.
We often go ghost hunting around my hometown, but we have traveled upon request. There is one site that we find ourselves visiting time after time, though. It is a church with an open field with 3 wooden crosses that lies off the Wallaceville Road in Dempseytown, Pennsylvania. We like to call it Roller Coaster Road, though, because of its winding bends and steep hills. It's ironic that you feel as if you're on a roller coaster when your stomach is already in knots when anticipating what you will find at this ominous place, especially during what is referred to as dead time, 1 to 4 in the morning, with the peak of paranormal activity lying between the hours of 3 and 4. One particularly foggy night, at about 3 in the morning, my mom, brother, and I drove to the church. Because of the feelings all of us had in our stomachs, none of us were about to get out of the car. Plus, upon arrival, my brother claimed to have seen one of the crosses upside down and on fire in his peripheral vision. After staring at the field for what felt like hours and finding nothing but the occasional black cat, we decided to turn around and go home. As my mom started the engine and turned on the lights, we all drew our attention to what looked like a mini tornado forming in front of the car. That was enough for Mom to whip the Subaru around and leave the premises. When we got home and exited the vehicle, we discovered a hoof print on the back bumper. That one I have left open for interpretation, but we were coming from a church at 3 in the morning, and we do not own any horses.
And he saw the little hurricane, tornado thing, and he kept telling me to get out of there.
The experience that I have had with what I believe are spirits have truly shaped the way that I see the world and what I believe to be fiction and reality.
I was probably 17, 18 at the time, and my mother was really trying to get me to question, whether or not I believed in the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, heaven and hell, the afterlife, all this kind of stuff. So it was around the Easter time, and I was really debating this whole situation. So she made me watch The Passion of the Christ. That movie got me thinking. It made me kind of crazy at the time because it's it's a serious film. So after I watched the movie, I get to thinking some serious. I don't know if it's coincidental or supernatural. You can decide. But some weird stuff started happening to me. On a tennis trip, I went to Burger King, and my receipt, $6.66. I started seeing weird symbols everywhere. For the first time in my life, I saw this road sign that said Jesus is the way. I've driven past that road 1,000 times. It was the first time I'd ever seen it. And on one particular evening, a couple of friends and myself were driving around like usual, going out to 2 Mile to do some fishing. And I was really getting pretty serious about this debate with all this weird stuff happening. And we pulled up in Country Fair to get a couple of drinks before we went out there. And as I'm sitting in the back of my friend Sean's car, this van was in beside me. Of course, on the window there's this huge painting, or picture of Jesus. And I'm just like, oh, well, we get out to 2 Mile, it's really dark. So we're driving around, going to our fishing spot, and we see on the side of the road like a man or a woman standing on the side of the road out in the woods, in just a black hood, like a black cloak. And we couldn't make it out. That's all we saw. And it was like strikingly similar to the devil character in The Passion of the Christ. So me, Sean, and Tom, we got like seriously freaked out by it. But we just kept on going. We went fishing. At the fishing spot, a couple 100 yards down, we see the same figure, standing there. Keep in mind, this is pretty late at night. So, we just blew it off because after a while, it's just not even there anymore. So, on the way back home, we drive by the same spot, and there's that same figure leaning up against a tree in the same spot. So at this point, we're like seriously freaked out because, I still hadn't decided whether or not I believed in, Jesus, the devil, God, heaven, hell. But, at this point, I was really starting to question whether or not these were signs or just coincidences. And at this point, I'm leaning towards signs that there's something real. So, after we see this thing for the last time, Sean drops me off at my house, and I get ready to crash out. I'm waiting for my friend Ben to get home, because he lives at this point. And he strolls into the house about 2 hours after I get back, and he says to me, he's like, "Hey man, someone just leave here?" And I was like, "No, why?" He's like, "Well, there's someone up the road standing by the telephone pole in a black hoodie." Described him the same exact way that we described, the thing that we had seen at 2 Mile. So I really wanted to believe that was like the devil or something.
I used to wish I could talk to Dad about all this stuff, but of course, he died. Well, one night when I went to bed, I think you were sleeping with me. I'm not sure. I thought I was dreaming, but I don't think I was dreaming. I don't know. It was too real. He came to me in my dream and he was trying to console me because I was crying. And he just told me that I didn't have to worry because he knows you and that he's in you. He's with you all the time. It would be like there were times when you were little, like a little girl and you couldn't talk, but you'd be talking to somebody, but nobody ever knew who the heck you were talking to.
I was the only grandchild of his that he had never met. In his life, that is.
I never had to worry about you after that because I knew that Granddad was always with you. He gave you all your talents. He was always with you. He still is.
I believe that dreams are connected to reality in a way that is unexplainable, and that we are limited by our 5 senses, and that they do not allow us to perceive what is beyond them. That is why the paranormal is described as horrific or frightening. We are afraid of the unknown. We are attached both to what is there and what is not there, as well as our fears. Personally, I very much enjoy being scared. It is a learning experience and a part of what builds my unique mind.
Is that creepy or what?
Pretty crazy story.